Prosecutors say the Aryan Warrior gang is responsible for 4 murders in this massive criminal case. The video we will show you will be used as evidence in one of those murders. It's also at the center of a civil lawsuit filed in federal court by the murder victim's family. I want to warn our viewers, the video is graphic and disturbing.
He wasn't a saint, but he didn't deserve what happened to him.
That's the father of Andrew Thurgood in an exclusive interview with 8 News Now in July of 2018. It is now 3.5 years after his son was killed at High Desert State Prison, and the 2 suspects are finally charged with murder. This video from February of 2016 is a central part of the case. Thurgood and 2 men identified as Anthony Williams and Tarek Goycochea walk into a cell. 6 minutes later, Williams and Goycochea walk out and then back in. Williams drags Thurgood out of the cell. Then Goycochea drags him. Thurgood is beaten and allegedly stabbed 52 times. Less than a minute later, as officers arrive, Williams and Goycochea give each other props before they get down to the ground. No medical attention is immediately provided. Thurgood is left lying there, bleeding. He moves slightly several times. More officers arrive. Approximately 12 minutes after an officer first reached Thurgood, jail staff put him on his feet and walk him out. According to this coroner's report, he was taken to the prison infirmary, complained he couldn't breathe, and died nearly an hour later. Thurgood was 26 years old.
Authorities have announced a major bust of nearly 24 alleged members of a Southern Nevada white supremacist gang.
Now, the defendants are facing a variety of charges for crimes in prison and also out on the streets. Patrick Walker explains.
23 alleged members of the Aryan Warriors white supremacist gang are facing a bevy of charges.
We're talking murder, murder for hire, fraud, drug trafficking from methamphetamine to prescription drugs, extortion, theft, burglary. You name the type of crime, they were almost involved in all of it.
Daniel Neal is the assistant special agent in charge of the Drug Enforcement Administration's Nevada efforts. He says the DEA got involved in the ongoing investigation in January, and it culminated Saturday with 7 search warrants, leading to 10 arrests and charges for 12 more people who were already behind bars.
It was a combined effort of everyone bringing resources together to go after this violent criminal organization.
The most violent alleged offenders listed in the complaint, Anthony Williams and Tarek Goycochea, are charged with the murder of a fellow inmate at High Desert State Prison in 2016. Christopher Ashoff and Devin Campbell are accused of double murder back in January, and Campbell is accused of a 3rd killing of a homeless man in a tent. In all, there are 19 men and 4 women who are facing 152 charges in the case.
All the tools in the arsenal were utilized to bring these guys to justice.
While the DEA calls the operation a success, Neal won't go as far as to say they have taken down the gang.
Our goal is to reduce violent crime in the Vegas area. So where this one may end, another investigation will begin.
Patrick Walker, 8 News.
It is a case with 23 defendants, allegations of white supremacy, murder, and more, and it's getting a lot of attention. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy has more on what unfolded in court today as several defendants appeared in front of a judge. Vanessa.
Yeah, security was tight at the Regional Justice Center. Prosecutors are saying these defendants are members of a white supremacist gang in Southern Nevada called the Aryan Warriors. This includes men and women of various ages in prison, out of prison, leaders and members. Charges include murder, robbery, burglary, drug trafficking, racketeering, forgery, and more. A total, as we mentioned, 23 are charged. 13 appeared in court today, including 3 women. Some of the defendants have nicknames like Bullwinkle, Checkers, Coco, Cowboy, and Schizo. Today in court, 2 of the defendants had attorneys, the others did not. And you can see how many officers there are as the defendants are brought in and out of that courtroom. One attorney raised concerns about the attention this case is getting.
Another thing, this unprecedented, overwhelming show of law enforcement force coupled with the media, it seems to me, it's occurring to me as we do this, is raising issues of possible necessity for a venue motion. I mean, this is, I've never seen anything like this. These guys are presumed innocent, and we've got like the army here.
It is likely we will see the same level of security at the next court date set for September 11th. Various law enforcement agencies announced the arrest just last week. This is an investigation the DEA has been working on for months.
Yeah, all three defendants we talked with deny any involvement in the Aryan Warrior gang. Two of them would not answer specific questions we had, and they happen to be husband and wife. Are you part of the Aryan Warrior gang?
I am not. I am not.
Are you a white supremacist?
Ma'am, my daughter is, I have a 23-year-old daughter who's half black, half white.
Photos on Facebook show happier times for the family. Now Norma Snyder and her husband Jess Guth are among 23 indicted. Authorities call them members of the Aryan Warrior gang, deemed dangerous and violent. Some are accused of murder. Snyder and Guth are accused of drug trafficking, racketeering, and more.
The majority of the people on this indictment have fallen out with the gang over so much time.
Were you part of that gang in prison?
I'm not going to speak on this without an attorney.
According to grand jury transcripts, Jess Guth admitted to being a member of the Aryan Warriors at High Desert State Prison and said he has an AW tattoo. He spent time behind bars for attempted murder, forgery, and other charges. He insists the past year he stayed out of trouble, working construction at the new Raiders stadium. But Metro Police say the couple was selling drugs. Investigators say a confidential informant purchased methamphetamine at their home earlier this year, twice. And at least once, Norma Snyder hand-delivered the meth. And a search warrant revealed a stash inside the house. Were you dealing drugs out of your home?
I'm not going to answer any of these questions. They're charging me with trafficking. They don't have me selling any drugs whatsoever.
Defendant Michael Sullivan tells the I-Team he was selling drugs.
Oh, yeah, I sold some dope, yeah.
He also denies any involvement with the Aryan Warrior gang.
I ain't never been in a gang my whole entire life.
You're not a white supremacist?
Not at all.
Do you have any tattoos associated with the Aryan Warriors?
Not at all.
Jess Guth says he has a lot more to say, but he hasn't been appointed an attorney yet. He wants to wait to talk with his lawyer when he gets one. This case is still very early on. You can expect more court appearances and updates.
And you spoke with those three, but of course almost 24 people were arrested in connection. What about the other defendants?
So many of them are at the Clark County Detention Center. Out of them, these three are the only ones who agreed to talk with us. There are other defendants in prison. Typically, cameras are not allowed for interviews.
All right. Thank you, Vanessa. It is a case with 23 defendants, allegations of white supremacy, murder, and more, and it's getting a lot of attention. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy has more on what unfolded in court today as several defendants appeared in front of a judge. Vanessa.
Yeah, security was tight at the Regional Justice Center. Prosecutors are saying these defendants are members of a white supremacist gang in southern Nevada called the Aryan Warriors. This includes men and women of various ages, in prison, out of prison, leaders and members. Charges include murder, robbery, burglary, drug trafficking, racketeering, forgery, and more. A total, as we mentioned, 23 are charged. 13 appeared in court today, including 3 women. Some of the defendants have nicknames like Bullwinkle, Checkers, Coco, Cowboy, and Schizo. Today in court, 2 of the defendants had attorneys, the others did not. And you can see how many officers there are as the defendants are brought in and out of that courtroom. One attorney raised concerns about the attention this case is getting.
Another thing, this unprecedented, overwhelming show of law enforcement force coupled with the media, I mean, it seems to me, it's occurring to me as we do this, is raising issues of possible necessity for a venue motion. I mean, this is, I've never seen anything like this. These guys are presumed innocent. We've got like the army here.
It is likely we will see the same level of security at the next court date set for September 11th. Various law enforcement agencies announced the arrest just last week. This is an investigation the DEA has been working on for months. Back to you.
Two men accused of murder and having ties to a white supremacist gang could face the death penalty. The Clark County District Attorney's Office tells the I-Team prosecutors will seek a death sentence for Tariq Goycochea and Anthony Williams. Investigators say they killed a man in prison and they belong to the Aryan Warriors gang, along with 21 other defendants. Today in court, many of them entered not guilty pleas, including the 3 people our I-Team interviewed in jail last week.
The majority of the people on this indictment have fallen out with the gang over so much time.
Were you part of that gang in prison?
I'm not going to speak on this without an attorney.
A trial date is set for November. Prosecutors say 3 defendants are still at large.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Hope you guys having a good weekend. It's wrapping up here. Anyway, excited to bring you guys a story today. We're going to be talking about a case involving the Aryan Warriors prison gang and street gang out of Nevada. Really interesting, man. Really, really interesting. The deeper I dive into prison gangs, and of all races too, not just white, not just African American, not just Hispanic, all of them. It's just, there's so many different subsets, there's so many different ideologies, there's so many similarities, but there's also so many differences. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the Aryan Warriors and a particular case that involved some of its members a few years ago. Going to give a brief history on the Aryan Warriors. They began in 1973 in the Nevada state prison system. The gang designed itself after the California gang, the Aryan Brotherhood, sought to protect whites against the growing attacks from black prisoners. After seeking a charter membership from the AB and being turned down, the Aryan Warrior gang was on its own, which is common. Sometimes these smaller upstart white gangs are going to reach out, see if they can kind of get under the umbrella, and if they can't, its leaders are going to go, well, we're going to go for it our own no matter what, because at the end of the day, you got to protect yourselves. You got to protect your guys. You got to protect yourselves with numbers. And a lot of the stuff I'm seeing with a lot of these prison gangs, it seems like 70s and 80s was that time where they were carving out their own space, and it was kind of the Wild West of the prison system back in the day. About a year into the creation of the gang, who up to now they were unable to organize, right? It took about a year to organize. It said, and this is interesting, right? I couldn't get an exact name, but it said it was taken over by an older inmate doing a life sentence named the Pope. I couldn't get a real name, but that's what it said, the Pope. Familiar with the way the Aryan Brother gang worked, okay, the Pope began to organize and structure the Aryan Warriors. He established rules for all gang members to follow and a hierarchy of leadership. Building up the physical strength of the Aryan Warriors became a priority, focusing on its enemy, primarily African American inmates. That was the main target. Building the gang's reputation for violence and selecting future members based on their strength and violent backgrounds became its mission, which is what you see with a lot of these gangs, right? It's about the level of violence you're willing to go to. That is number one, okay? A lot of inmates, a lot of prospects, a lot of potential people, but it's going to be the absolute best of the best they're going to be allowed to get in. That's it. And this gentleman named the Pope knew that. And I wonder if he did time in California prison system. I don't know. It's hard to tell. But he definitely knew what he was doing. He definitely knew how to cycle through and kind of filter out the ones that were no good and the ones that he needed. Kind of reading through the history, I saw indictments starting to get handed down like at least the feds getting involved in the early 2000s. The case we're going to be covering is a little more recent than that. So remember, they're in Nevada, in the Las Vegas areas, okay? August 2019, in what authorities are calling a major investigative takedown, 23 people tied to the Aryan Warriors, a violent white supremacist gang operating under orders trickling from leaders inside Nevada prisons. Because remember, guys, a lot of these street-based prison gangs, the leaders are locked up. The guys calling the shots are locked up. 23 people tied to the Aryan Warriors were indicted on more than 150 charges, including drug trafficking, racketeering, and murder. An indictment unsealed last week charges 2 men, and this is the case we're going to be focusing on. All right, remember that. Charges 2 men in the February 2016 murder of Andrew Ryan Thurgood at High Desert State Prison in Indian Springs. Anthony Williams, known as Muggsy, he's the one that you see with all the face tats after he spent some time behind bars. And Tariq Goycochea, known as Torque, now stand charged with murder and conspiring to kill Thurgood. Thurgood, 26, was stabbed during a fight with 2 other inmates in a facility day room. He had been serving 12 to 34 months at the prison following conviction on a felony charge of attempted possession of stolen vehicles. So, 23 indictments. The one we're going to focus on, we're focusing on that case, but the one we're going to be really talking on is this murder of Andrew Ryan Thurgood. And what authorities are calling a major investigative takedown. 23 people tied to the Aryan Warriors, a violent white supremacist gang operating orders, like I said, trickling from the guys upstairs, man. The guys locked up are going to be the ones doing it. All right? So, the Aryan Warriors are kind of like organized like a paramilitary group with operatives in both the prison system and the Las Vegas community. Orders to street-based members to commit the crimes the syndicate is known for trickle to the outside from prison leaders behind bars, according to authorities. Unlike other white supremacist groups that are focused on spreading their ideologies, this is important, the Aryan Warriors are focused on drug trafficking, racketeering, and murder. So, that's important, right? And this is where I'm saying there's a lot of similarities in some of these, in a lot of these race-based gangs, but there's a ton of differences too. There are a ton of differences because a lot of these white Aryan gangs, they want to spread their ideologies, right? They have firm beliefs. They want people to know that. Not the Aryan Warriors. They want to sell drugs, do drugs, extort, rob, murder, and exert power. According to the indictment, the white supremacist gang uses violence to obtain greater access to the illegal controlled substance market, prevent members or others from cooperating with law enforcement, traffic and or sell controlled substances, possess forgery laboratories, forge credit cards, forge currency in order to finance the Aryan Warriors and or white supremacist ideology, organize, manage, and finance the Aryan Warriors criminal syndicate by instructing members to commit violence on behalf of the gang. Excuse me, at a Wednesday afternoon press conference, members of DEA Las Vegas and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department disclosed additional details about what authorities dubbed a major investigative takedown directed for-profit violence. The investigation began in February. The mission of the joint operation was to disrupt and dismantle the Aryan Warriors' violent impact in the Las Vegas Valley, said John Leon, captain of the gang vice bureau in Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. The gang, Leon said, had been actively involved in acts including murder, robbery, battery with a deadly weapon, assault with a deadly weapon, fraud, identity theft, drug trafficking, and selling narcotics between California and Vegas. This gang, quote, this gang is responsible for some of the worst crimes that have occurred in our community, Leon said. There is a distinct link between the leadership and the street soldiers of the documented Aryan Warriors and directed for-profit violence. Some of those taken down, the nicknames were, I just kind of did this as a little side thing. Some of the nicknames: Coco, Lil Dog, Big Jess, Dot, Checkers, Bro, Sully, Temper, Soup, Muggsy, Lil Mickey, Torque, Bullwinkle, Cowboy, Schizo, and E. In the comments below, I want to know what your nickname would be and which one of these has got to go. Some of these I'm okay with. Bullwinkle, Schizo. Nah, I'm not feeling that one, Doug. I want a new one. Torque? All right, I mess with Torque. I ain't doing Schizo or Bullwinkle, but anyway, comments below. I want to know a good nickname. Or if you guys have an actual street name, I want to know what it is, if you're okay with putting it up there. If you're not, you don't have to. I'm not trying to get you to snitch on yourself. So, we're going back to the murder of Andrew Ryan Thurgood by Anthony Williams, known as Muggsy, and Tariq Goycochea, known as Torque. So the murder happened in 2016. These guys didn't get arrested for the murder until 2019. Goycochea, he'd been behind bars the whole time, but Williams had actually gotten out. He was rearrested for robberies and finally charged with the murder. But the family of Andrew Ryan Thurgood, you see his dad talk about him and stuff, you know. And what I kind of wanted to talk about really quick before I go into more detail on this particular murder, I wanted to give you a background of the Aryan Warriors. I wanted to give you a background on the indictment. Now we're going to talk about this particular part of the indictment, this particular murder case. But, you know, a lot of times when we read these, and I do it too, when I read these news articles, when I read all these things about, unfortunately, right, gang members killing gang members or people in prison killing people in prison, we forget, man, that these guys have a mom, these guys have a dad, these guys have people that love them. Even the people that you think are the worst of the worst, or people that, not even so much the worst of the worst, just some of these people that you go, like, wow, you've just thrown your life away, right? And who cares if two gang members inside a max security state prison killed each other, right? Who cares? Hey, they obviously did something bad to get there. They deserve what they got coming. There's people that love them, man. So it's important to remember that, because when you see Andrew Ryan Thurgood, the murder of him, right, you just assume that he was no good, drug problem, he'd committed crimes, he'd hurt people, right? Maybe he did something, maybe did something very violent to get in, but his dad talks about him, he wasn't always bad. He wasn't a saint, but he wasn't always bad. And I think, in my experience, I had people that didn't give up on me. I had people that stuck with me and gave me multiple chances. I had people that, no matter how many times I relapsed, no matter how many times I went back to detox or jail, or just back out on the streets, right? There were people that still loved me and people that still reached out. And I was fortunate, right? Because I know people, and I'm sure some of you listening to this, maybe you don't have people that cared about you, reached out to you. And I get where you're coming from, because I know people like that didn't have anything growing up, and we're an extreme disadvantage. And it's easy to wind up in jail. It's easy to wind up in prison if you've got a drug habit, or if you come from nothing and you're surrounded by this stuff at a young age. That's all you know. What are you going to do? You're going to go do the same thing. So I just kind of like to bring a human element to these stories. Okay, so Andrew Ryan Thurgood, his father in the interview he says his son was in trouble with the Aryan Warriors prison gang, which Thurgood used to belong to. Thurgood allegedly refused to give up an old nickname, and soon Marty believes the gang got retribution. He knew that they were after him, his dad said. 8 News obtained Thurgood's autopsy report. February 1st, 2016, just before 3 in the afternoon, prison videos show Thurgood walking into a cell with 2 other inmates. 6 minutes later, the doors open. The inmates drag out his body, and when you saw the video, it's very violent. It's hard to watch. They drop him on the ground, high-five each other, and tell the guards an hour later Thurgood was dead. He'd been stabbed and beaten. He was 26 years old. Now, this is really interesting. His dad, quote, "The guards and this gang conspired to have him murdered," end quote. He goes on to say, to have him in a cell where he didn't belong, no one has been charged. The dad actually sued the guards, the prison, and the inmates. And Thurgood's dad truly believed that it was all conspiracy. And I'm not totally against it. Those of you that have done time, those of you that know people that have done time, there are a lot of crooked guards. There's a lot of stuff that goes on inside these jails and these prisons that some people would not believe. Marty's claims, I'm saying Marty. So if you heard me say Marty, I want to clear this up. In this interview that he gave, the dad didn't want to use his real name for fear of retaliation. So I'm going to stick with Thurgood's dad claims are part of a federal lawsuit filed last month against Nevada's Department of Corrections, 2 of its officers and the 2 inmates. It alleges prison staff and 2 Aryan Warriors leaders conspired to lure Thurgood into an area he shouldn't have been in and let him be murdered. So basically alleging that the guards let this happen. The lawsuit claims it's part of an unholy alliance between officers and inmates at High Desert to keep relative peace and in some cases impose justice. So really quick, I did a video on the BGF member who impregnated 4 female COs at the Baltimore City Jail. If you guys have watched it, great. If you haven't, it's okay. I'm not going to lie. It was one of my early videos. It doesn't have a lot of views. Go check it out. But in that video, in the prison recording call, he talks about how he runs the jail and how nothing goes on without his say. And it was proven that the guards were, in a way, answering to him, and they were letting things happen. And what I'm honing in on is the part about keeping the peace. And it said that guards at the Baltimore City Jail actually liked when the BGF was in control because it laid the law down for other inmates and it made their jobs easier. So when I read this as part of this federal lawsuit in Thurgood's death, I believe it. I believe that the guards and some of these inmates have an alliance, and there's an understanding that says, hey, if you keep all these people in line, we'll look past some of the stuff you're doing, whether it's drug dealing, whether it's assaulting other inmates, like for the greater good sort of a thing. Okay? So I believe it. I 100% believe it. And I normally don't give my opinion on this kind of stuff, but reading that, no, I don't think that's some crazy conspiracy. I don't. So the inmates, again, Anthony Williams, 36 years old, and Tariq Torque Goycochea, 34 years old. They had to face trial. They were facing capital punishment. Prosecutors presented a letter that Williams wrote to a woman the day before the murder, predicting he would soon be punished. Actually, no, it was a phone call predicting he would soon be punished. I have to handle something, Williams wrote in the letter. Oh, no, it was a letter. He wrote, I have to handle something. Williams wrote in the letter dated January 31st, 2016. Remember, the attack happened February 1st, 2016. So I will be going to the hole. So what's up? You want to be my pen pal or what? End quote. Oh, and he had a phone call. That's why. So it was a letter and a phone call. The letter and Williams' phone call were made public this week. Corrections officers intercepted the letter at the time, and the call was recorded, suggesting that prison officials knew of Williams' plan, though he was not charged for his alleged role in the February 1st, 2016 slaying for more than 3 years. So he was released from prison. Then he organizes a bunch of armed robberies in Clark County. Then he gets rearrested in this indictment for murder. So it's pretty crazy. And Goycochea, he was locked up the whole time. So fast forward, I was trying to follow up on this story. What happened with these guys that were charged with the murder? In 2020, a judge tossed out the case against Tariq Goycochea for lack of evidence. In an internal email from late 2018, a top prosecutor in the state attorney general's office, which oversees crimes in the prison system, recommended that no charges be filed against the suspects, either one of them. Goycochea, quote, had been thoroughly vetted by the attorney general, and their decision to not prosecute should have been given more deference. The state has never presented sufficient evidence that Goycochea was an Aryan Warrior or that this was done for the Aryan Warriors. There is zero evidence that the racketeering charges that have been set forth against all those defendants had anything to do with Tariq Goycochea. That I can say unequivocally. So, Goycochea, it got the death penalty, he got completely off of the murder. And reading that email, it sounds like he may not have even been tied into that indictment, or he shouldn't have been. Prosecutor, this is from a prosecutor's office, a top prosecutor in the state attorney general's office saying that. That's really interesting. That is very, very interesting. Normally when the feds come correct. Normally when the feds come, the feds got all their ducks in a row and they know what they're doing. So reading that is like, wow, he beat that case, that doesn't happen very often. But yeah, sad all the way around. A lot of these guys pled out. A lot of these guys got life. I encourage you guys, go check it out. Go read up on it. It's super interesting. You know, and you see the change in Williams, the Goycochea's co-defendant on the murder. Anthony Williams goes by Muggsy. You can see before and then like after he's been in there for a while, man, he changes so much. So anyway, though, there you have it. The Aryan Warriors, the indictment from 2019, the 2016 murder, of Andrew Thurgood. Very, very interesting. And it seems like the Aryan Warriors, like I said, they weren't promoting their ideologies. They were just in it to take over, exert as much power as they could. And I didn't realize they'd been around as long as they had. It took me a while to actually find their history. But about the 6th or 7th article, I finally found something that really broke down their past. So there you guys have it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Till next time. Peace.